But I really wake up today and thought about if I should come here. But I really want to see all of you, like real faces after these 2 years, like seeing actual faces and real people and not through Zoom screens. So I really want to be here today. So thank you everyone for coming. You know, like these 2 last years were really, if I need to be polite, I can say challenging, but I'm not polite. So it was really like a shit, right? Like, 2 years you can't like, you know, all these things like pandemic, the lockdowns, quarantine, masks, you can't call it like challenging, right? It's a world you don't want to live in, obviously. So, like, one of my managers at the beginning told me like that I should stop complaining about things and maybe I should actually try to fix things. But how do you fix something that has already happened? Well, there's only one way, like going back in time. So I hope you guys, I see some like young people here. I hope you guys know this movie. So yeah, Back to the Future. Let's get into our DeLorean and get back to the year 2017. Now, why 2017? This was my first time here in Porto. You can see me here, like more hair, no mask, and trying to fight this Francesinha, I think it's called Francesinha. So you also know what I did like the first, when I landed in Porto again, obviously. So yeah, this was my first reason we're going back to this year. And another reason is PyCon Israel. So I'm from Tel Aviv, Israel. And when PyCon is the biggest conference for Python. And when it arrived to Israel for the second time, I thought I should be there. I was a Python like developer. I thought I really need to improve my coding skills. I should go to this conference. I never really thinking about like giving a talk, going on stage in this conference. At the time, I was more focusing on like coding. Even at my free time, I developed some really cool like side projects. One of them was something I called Bridge that lets you jump from your IDE to your browser and vice versa. So once I've completed this like cool snippet, I sent like a mail to the entire company and everybody really liked it and used it. But then one of my peers told me, hey, like PyCon is coming to Israel, maybe you should go and give a talk there. Well, actually, I didn't think this is like something you can really give a talk about. Like it's just a small snippet, a few lines of code. But it really opened the door for me, like even thinking about this idea. So after like getting to this conference, I done some talks in like many other conferences, some meetups, some local conferences, and some international conferences. And this was me in my first conference until I got here today. So probably I wouldn't be on this stage today talking with you if not like this like friend of like a colleague of mine, which called it Adam. He told me like he gave me the first push. A year later, another peer of mine, Dina, she did a workshop in the company for writing blogs. I went to this workshop. After this workshop, I wrote a few blogs. Some of them even reached like 1,000, or one even reached like 10,000 of audience, which was really cool experience for me, learning how to write and also getting a much bigger exposure. Then at the time also, Danny, which was also a developer, a peer of mine, she did an internal conference about React. At the time, it was a few years ago, I didn't know anything about React. I went to this like internal conference, learned like the basics of React. Then we did something called React and Hackathon. It was that one day we could actually like write our React like snippet. So I did this like cool product, push it into production, and it's also like it's even today it's still running. So all these people, they are all individual contributors. None of them is a manager, and they all help me open me like doors to grow in different paths. So as I say, they are all individual contributors, not managers. So let's talk about the differences between these two. Let's talk about career ladders first. So when I joined the industry, I think it was 10 or 15 years ago, like I joined a company where you join as a developer. Then when there is an open position, and if you're doing good at your job, you can then get promoted to being a team manager. Then again, if you're doing good at your job and there is an open position, you can get promoted to being a group manager, and so on, until you become the VP R&D of the company. And you probably noticed that first you need to wait for an open position to get promoted. But the problem, the main problem here is there's a hidden assumption, right? That being a good developer also means that you're going to be a good manager. It means two things. First, you have the capability. Like you really need to believe that writing code and doing good architectures mean that you also know to lead people. And also there's a willing, right? If you're really passionate about code, you'll also be passionate about leading people. Sometimes it's right. Some people are just perfect, but not always. Probably if you work in a company like this that had only one way to grow, I'm sure you can think about one brilliant developer who was like the best developer, and when they become manager, they really sucked at this role because they were good developers, but they didn't really have the capacity, the capability, or the willing to lead people. So when you're doing this, if you have like one way to grow, and you're promoting your best developer to be a manager, and they're not good in that, you're losing twice. First, you're losing your best software engineer, and then you're also gaining a very bad manager. So the way I see most companies solve this today, especially in the US based or more like enterprise companies. So you join a company, it's a more like Y-shaped ladder. When you join the company as a junior developer, also called individual contributor level 1, for example, then if you're overperforming, or they might say performing as the next level, only then you can be promoted to being an intermediate developer. Then again, if you're overperforming or performing as the next level, you can then get promoted to being a senior developer. And then you need to make a decision in your life. Either you want to continue with the individual contributor path, the technical path, or pivoting, shifting to being a manager. This is actually a different role, a different track. You start from the beginning and now you can be a manager. Then if you decided to go with the IC path, you can then get promoted to being a staff engineer and principal engineer, and you have a way to grow even without being a manager. If you decide you want to be a manager and you're good at this, you can also get promoted being a director and senior director. So you can see here you have two ways to grow. You don't necessarily need to be a manager to grow. And we talked about first you need to have open position to be promoted. Here, if you want to perform as the next level, it depends on the company values, what it means to perform as the next level. But generally speaking, as I read some of the career frameworks, it depends on three things: the scope of your work, how big it is, if it's in a quarterly project, annual project, how many people work on this project. Also the impact, which KPIs are you moving, or companies like to say, are you really moving the needle? And the complexity of your work, how much ambiguity you need to deal, and how many unknowns do you need to deal on your way. So again, it depends on the company, but generally speaking, these are the three things that companies today look to promote you. So this was just an example. If you want to see the actual levels and titles in different companies, you can see it in a site called Levels FYI, and then you can see the actual titles in companies and then also the comparison between them. This is very informal, so companies probably won't agree with that, but it gives you the big picture of the levels. Also, if you want to see the career frameworks for different companies, the actual framework. So I work at Dropbox, and a year ago, we open sourced all the career framework. So you can actually see the different levels, the different roles, and the expectation for each level, which is really amazing. Also, more companies join GitLab, Medium, Square, you can actually see their career frameworks and the expectation for each level. So everything I'm going to say today is only from my point of view and from my experience in many companies. If you actually want to see the Dropbox formal point of view, you can go to these sites. Cool, so reading all these career frameworks, and again, this can change from one company to another. If I had to point out the manager's main focus points, I'd say that it's first is hiring, taking care of the headcounts, requirement for open positions, moderating the briefs for new hires, also everything about culture, collaboration in the team, communication, making sure that the team embraces the values, the company values, everything about the strategy of the team, the direction, making sure they have objectives, and there's alignment between the different teams in the organization. And probably the most important one, at least from what I think, is growth. like making sure that their direct reports actually have a way and they're actually growing, either by doing one-on-one meetings with them in a weekly cadence, making sure that all their direct reports have a growth plan, giving them feedback, and so on. Cool. So if this is what managers do, what do we, like software engineers, do? Individual contributors. Well, if you ask society, they'll probably tell you like you're running like numbers falling from the top of the screen. It's always like green numbers or letters falling. I don't know why. But if you ask your friends, they're all probably tell you the same. Maybe they know that you're coding. Maybe they even know some few languages. They think you're like all day like coding. If you ask your family, probably they also think like you're sitting in front of a computer all day and just like ticking the keyboard. And if you ask computer students also, they're probably going to tell you, yeah, I'm going to code for the rest of my life. But what do we actually do as a senior engineers or tech leads? Okay, probably, hopefully not this, but more like this. So you're not sitting probably in front of a computer all day long, but you are doing more of a collaboration, making sure that there's like doing reviews for your peers, alignment with other teams, and so on. And since we are now in remote day work, so maybe it's something like this in front of a Zoom. So if I need to take like find the like main like focus point for individual contributors, either senior engineers or tech leads. So tech lead is a title that is given in different companies. It can mean many things, and also inside a company it can mean many things. So I'm not going to deep dive into that. Let's just assume that senior engineers, tech leads, experienced engineers, staff engineers, for this talk, let's assume they're the same. So what do senior IC do? So everything about the tech, from the architecture, integration inside a team, being a point of contact to other teams, innovation if we need to run some POC, proof of concept, unblocking their peers with their experience and their context. They can help their peers when they're stuck. Also the communication and making sure there's a good delivery, quality, everything about reviews, making sure that metrics are in place, and writing the playbooks or making sure there are playbooks, and obviously other documentation. But what is the fourth focus point? Well, if you've seen the title of this talk, it's growth. Like I believe that growth or making sure that your peer actually has like a growth trajectory is not something that should be only done by managers, but also by us software engineers and senior individual contributors. I think like the term individual contributor is one of the worst in the industry, really. Like you're never an individual, right? You're working in a team, you're helping others. You are not being only evaluated by like the tasks that you're doing or by your individual work, but also by how good is your team and your projects. And obviously, if you're a tech lead, also you're leading, like you're a leader, so you can't really be an individual. So I really don't like this term, but that's life. So, but why? Like why you should care, right? You have your manager, they care for the direct reports. Why you, as a software engineer, should even care about your peers' growth? The first reason is for them. Like they're your colleagues, sometimes your friends. Like you really honestly want to see them grow. You really like them. You really like them and want to see them grow. You're satisfied when they grow and they're having like achievements. So for them, it's important. Also for the team, like you're a senior engineer in a team, you are evaluated by the way you execute the projects in your team. And if you want like to have like good results and good execution, you need to make sure you have a strong team by helping your peers also grow. And the third reason is for you. Like at the end, like you can only grow and be a better developer if you're surrounded by good people. Now, Steve Jobs, I think, said that if you want like to hire someone, you should hire someone who can teach you and not someone to teach. Well, I kind of agree with that, but you know, it's not always easy to hire like only senior engineers who can teach you. And also, if you hire someone good, you still need to making sure they have the ramp up and they have all the content in the company. So really helping your peers, you're helping them today, making them better professionals, and then tomorrow they help you or teach you something new. So for them, for the team, and for you. But I won't tell you it's like a bed of roses. It's not always that easy. There are some challenges in the way. And the first challenge, it's time consuming. Really, it takes time to help people, unblocking them. Sometimes, somebody has a bug, you need to sit with them like 4 hours to debug. Pair programming takes time. Mentoring takes time. All these things takes time, and you need to be aware of that. Also sync with your manager and making sure that they are aware that you are not evaluated only by your tasks, but you also have like time to help others. And also for you, like if you like doing some sprint planning, sprint grooming, and you put your task, making sure that you do allocate some of the time to also help others and unblock them. Second reason it's challenging, that we lack the skill set probably. Like, I don't know about you, but in the university where I studied, like we only studied math, computer science, all these. Nobody like teaches about like mentoring, leadership, communication, like working with people. You actually never learn about that. It's not something you are born with, actually. So we need to make sure again that talking with your manager, if there is some workshop, I know that for example, there's some workshop about soft skills in companies. Most of the time they are for managers. So trying to also join this workshop, try to consume more like content. If today you were reading blogs, watching movies on YouTube, only about hard skills. So also you should try moving like more to learn about soft skills, about communication, about like supporting your team. And I think like coming here today to this talk might be a good start. But these are the challenges. We do have some advantages. So in a survey that was done in like Harvard Business Review, tens of people were asked, who would you trust more? Your manager or just the people from the street, just a stranger from the street? What do you think were the answers? Well, it's kind of shocking. Like most of the people actually trust like someone like just a stranger from the street more than their manager. They have like zero trust in their manager. I hope this is not the case for you, but either it is or even if it doesn't, you probably have like better informal connection with your peers. Like the manager, even if it's the best manager, the manager is still the one that that can promote their direct reports, can fire them, they're doing the yearly review or feedback. So some people don't always feel very comfortable to come and talk with the manager when they have problems. They might have more informal connection with you, someone from the team. So you can use this to actually solve their problem and help them grow. Also, as I said, like there's like managers go in a different path. So many times they are not really hands-on. You probably have like you pick the technical path. You have more knowledge and also more hands-on and have better context, like technical context. So whenever you should use this, whenever there's a problem, you can help people, giving them feedback or helping them, everything regarding about technical context that is required and your manager can't help. We should actually use these advantages. So I talked a lot about like, why and advantages, challenges, all these. Now let's be practical. Like how would you start? I say start at the beginning with new hires. So many companies today has this program called Buddy, Onboarding Buddy. Whenever there's a new hire who joined the company will allocate someone who is more senior to accompany this new hire, taking them hand by hand in their first steps. What do Buddy do? So they're teaching the new hire everything about the company culture, the processes, the company guidelines, everything about technical context. If they need some help at the beginning with setuping, setup is always hard. First setup, first time you compile the code, all this technical context that you need at the beginning. Also introducing them to all the relevant people and their team, key people in the organization. Logistic assistant, where can you park? Where do you get the first computer? And the most important question, what are the best restaurants around? Where do you actually eat? That's the first thing you need to know when you join a company, actually. And, just like being a friendly face, just like having a coffee in the morning, making sure that the new hire has like somebody to have lunch with. And actually, if you want to rock this like role of being a buddy, forget about this list. You only have to remember like one mantra. Say the new hire this sentence like answer. I'm here to answer any question you have. Like no question is stupid. That's the most important thing. And why I believe this should be a good experience if you never mentored anyone or never tried to do like some kind of these things. So it only requires basic knowledge. There's a new hire, join the company. They don't know anything about the company, the culture, the tech stack. So even if you're not in the company for years, you don't have like a massive like knowledge, you can still probably help them at their first steps. Also, it's limited in time frame. Right? This program ends like depends on the company. It can be like 3 weeks, 6 weeks, or so on. But after these 6 weeks, you're off. So then you can decide if you don't like it, don't do it again. But it's really limited in time. So this can be like your first experience, and then you can decide if you like it or not. And it actually has like a huge impact, the first impression in the company. When I joined the company a few years ago, I went like to the company, met the receptionist. She told me, okay, you need to get a new computer. Wait here a few hours until somebody gets to you. I waited a few hours until somebody gave me a computer. Then I didn't know what I need to do with the computer. And she told me, okay, there's like a manager, like the tech lead who needs to help you, but he's very busy. So sit here, wait a few more minutes. Then there was lunchtime, and I didn't know like where I should have lunch. Do I wait for someone or not? It was really a bad experience for the first day. And even like when I knew more people at this company for the first month, I was stuck all the time, and I didn't feel so comfortable to come to people with my problem. They always seemed so busy. So it gave me like a very bad impression on the company. But if you don't want to listen to my stories, try to prove it with numbers. So according to surveys, satisfaction. So if you have a body according to surveys, if you have a body for after 7 days, there's an uplift of 23%. If you have a body, then you're not. If you have a body for more than 90 days, there is a 36% uplift in people's like new hire satisfaction. But this is not only for satisfaction, but also from productivity. We want people to build things, right? Not only to be satisfied. So according to surveys, again, if you met like people who met their body or didn't met them at all, met their body once or didn't met them at all for the first 90 days, they reported they're productive. Only 56% of them reported they are productive. But if they met their bodies for 9 times or more, 97 of them reported they are productive. 97%, from 56% to 97%. It's like a huge improvement, only by giving like the new hires somebody who can accompany them for the first steps. Cool, so you help someone like a new hire, and now you actually want to help your teammates, like people from your team, your peers, to grow. And what I think the best way to help your peers grow is by giving them autonomy. Now, autonomy means that you give someone enough space to grow and getting to their goals. Probably the first question you want to ask yourself is what are their goals? Like if you're a senior engineer, I think it's a good advice. Just like ask people and know where people want, what they like to do, what drains them, where they want to be in like an year or two. Probably not only for your manager, but also you, like they're your colleagues. Probably want to know what they like and what they don't. So again, when I joined the company a few years ago, we were having like this kind of like pipeline when the project started with a product manager. They did everything regarding the product, like why are we building, what are we building, and so on. Then handed off the project to the designer, who decided everything about the UX and the UI. Handed off to the head architect, who decided everything about like the technology we're going to use, the main components we're going to have, and so on. Handed off to the tech lead, who wrote all the tech specs. Like everything like was on the tech specs, all the functions that we needed to implement. I was a developer. Only then I saw the tech specs and everything was there. Like all the like functions I need to implement, everything was already on the tech specs. So honestly, even today, like I worked in this company for a few years, I honestly tell you that I don't know what we were doing there. Like it was a telecommunication company. We did some protocols, something like routers that were buried in Africa somewhere. I don't know what we were building. I didn't see like the product. I wasn't involved in the, like I was only like writing code. My tech lead gave me like this function, you should write the code, and that's all I was doing. So yeah, I was, and I'm not proud of it. I hope this one was not recorded, but it is. I was what people call code monkey. I was getting like functions and I was implementing the function without knowing anything about like the company, without taking any like major decisions. Now it can work at the beginning, especially if you're a new hire. You might feel like you're growing, you're writing better code or something like that. But there you'll like soon enough you'll get like to a ceiling where you don't grow anymore. And like the only decisions you take are, should I write a for loop or a while loop? And you're not like a part of like the decision making, and you're not really engaged like and you don't even have a purpose. Like you don't understand what you're building and why. So I think a better way to look at this is that that's what you see more in companies, is breaking the pipeline. So yeah, the product manager is doing everything about the product, and the U designer do everything about the UX and the UI. But it's really good that the developers are involved from the beginning, that they know exactly what are the decisions, they are informed in some of the decisions, they know exactly why are we building, what are we building, and why like design took these decisions. And also most of the time they'll also be consultant, help like understand the trade-off between taking one approach and another. You know, sometimes designer need us to decide, like helping them understand the timeframes and so on. So making sure that your developer is also like all the developer involved from the first steps of the project is important. And then you as a tech lead or a senior engineer, instead of writing all the tech specs and choosing all the architecture, I think the best way, the best thing you can do is actually breaking the project. You can also find the dependencies, the risks and so on. But then probably instead of writing all the tech spec, breaking the project into building blocks as soon as you can. Understanding what like the main components, for example, if we're talking about a shopping cart, so the main component in a shopping cart can be like suggestions, item lists, and payment. And then every developer, or every like 2 developers, 3 developers, not more than that, get some like a sub project they need to handle, and they take it like end to end, right? From like deciding what technologies they're going to use, to writing all the specs, to breaking the specs into the actual tasks in Jira, for example, implementing everything, then also testing everything, and monitor, making sure that everything is pushed good to production. There's a monitor, a playbook, so the developer can take all these, like not the tech lead, the developer can take all these, so they actually have a project or a smaller project end to end. This way they can also, like once they want to grow, they don't need to learn like new skill. They don't need to learn how to write tech specs. You just can give them like bigger projects, as we talked at the beginning, projects with bigger scope, more complexity, or more impact, because they already know how to like take a project end to end. So for me, like if like we have these developers who do all the work, what does it mean for us like senior engineers and tech leads? Like, do we need to take like the biggest truck? Do we need to only be there for like helping people when they're stuck? Are we even accountable for the things here? Like, what does it mean for us if like every developer knows how to take something from end to end? And I wasn't sure, like at the like in my company I worked for at the beginning, I had like a lot of discussions with my manager about what does it mean to be like senior engineer or tech lead, how much like actual hands-on I need to be. Until I went to the US, so Yosemite Park, as you can see, I went to San Francisco, and with a friend, we want to go to Yosemite Park. Now, if you've been in the US or California, you probably know that public transportation is not even like an option there. If you want to go from place to place, you need to rent a car. Now, honestly, I don't care really much about cars. Like, I still drive like my 15 years old, like that's a Syrian. I really don't care about cars. So what want to rent a car, I went to a site like, I think I Googled like cheap rental cars, and then I saw like many options to rent a car. 2 of the options like were like with an automatic gearbox, and the second one was with manual gearbox. I know what were my friend's preferences, so I called him and asked him, what should we pick, an automatic gearbox or a manual gearbox? Let's do some poll here. What do you think? So Who thinks my friend told me we should rent an automatic gearbox? Who thinks the cheaper one? Okay. Who thinks he told me about the manual gearbox, which was also a cheaper one? Okay, I think most of the people here prefers like manual gearbox. Well, actually, you are all pretty wrong. He told me like, what the fuck, man? Like we're in the US. Like we're taking Tesla. Like it was a few years ago. You can actually only get Tesla in the US. I think only in California. And I told you I don't really care about cars, but Tesla is not a car. It's like a box of technologies. So yeah, I thought this is a good idea. We should take a Tesla. Now, well, we know Tesla, they have like really cool feature where you can put some like destination or like say some destination you want to go to on the map, and then cars go there for you. I thought this is what like everybody calls like autonomous cars, right? I was really excited like to drive this autonomous car until I read like the FAQ. And in the FAQ, they say like at least like 4 or 5 times, this is autopilot. It's not an autonomous car. You'll still like all the features that we have, you'll still need the supervision, but this is not an autonomous car. So what is the supervision defined by Tesla? There are 3 things you need to do if you want to ride a Tesla. First, you need to be attentive all the time for your surrounding, listen for what's going on, then like trying to seek obstacles in the way. The second thing you'll need to do is putting your hand on the steering wheel, otherwise it won't go. You always need to keep your hand on the steering wheel and making some course corrections or fix it when it goes out of lane. And the third thing, you need to be like on your seat, on the driver's seat, making sure that you can always take full control and brake when it's required, when a catastrophe happens. So when I came back from that trip, I thought, well, that's actually like what I'm required to do as a tech lead. Like my team will never be autonomous, right? There are new hires, there are people weaker than others, people who are more junior than others. So it requires me to do more of supervision, being attentive, listen to what's going on, making sure that I know what's going on in my team. Also looking like in front of me, try to see if there's like obstacles in the way or some risks. Second thing, I'll need to like put the hand on the steering wheel and making sure I can take like course corrections by giving feedback and helping people, like making sure the team goes in the right lane. And third thing is making sure that I can always take full control over this car, over this project, and even brake when it's required. So instead of like, I don't know how I would like say all this like in a few words, so I'll just take like Tesla's words and like your responsibility as tech leads or senior engineers. We just like change one word, because you are still responsible for your team and must monitor it and its surrounding at all times and be within your line of sight, because it might not detect all obstacles. This is like the probably most important thing, like you as a tech lead, you need to make sure that this car moves from one point to another without crashing in the way. So how do you give your teams like autonomy? By delegating. Delegating means that you take one task and pass it to someone who is less senior than you. That means that as you grow and become more like a senior positions, you are doing less, but reviewing more. Doing less of writing code and doing more of code reviews. Doing less of writing tech specs, but doing more tech spec review. Also, like making less decisions is also good, and actually being a decision reviewer. Doing more communication, for example, let your peers communicate with other teams in the organization, but be there just like to give them feedback and help them when they need. Doing more reviews. And one of the reasons I see why people don't delegate is you almost always lose for the short term, right? Delegation takes more time. There are some tasks you can do in 5 minutes, so you say, okay, I'll do it in 5 minutes. If I need to teach someone else, it will take me 1 hour. So delegation most of the times means more time. Also, the quality will be lower, right? You've done something like thousands of times, and they're going to do it for the first time. You can probably, like as an individual, have a better income. So probably the task might be in lower quality. Also, it requires double work. Instead of one people working on something, two people now work on this like task. So almost always you'll see that you're losing for the short term. But for the longer term, there's a big win because you're reducing bottleneck. If everybody needs you to take decisions or to write some complex code or like doing things like that, you become the bottleneck. So there are like your team will be less productive. So delegating means that people are more in charge and can do like other things they needed to wait for you before. Also, they'll be like more satisfied, right? People like they don't like to be blocked. They want to make decisions. They want to be able to be productive. So also you'll see higher satisfaction, and you as an individual can be more strategic. You can look like zoom out, look on like your team problems, maybe your company problems, and work on things in a bigger scope, and not always like being in the small details. But like delegation doesn't mean that you are like a pipeline that they just like throw tasks around. You'll need to make sure that there's like a safety net for people, that they don't crash if they fall. So there are 3 questions you want to ask yourself before you delegate something. First, is this task delegatable? I'm not sure if it's a word, but can we delegate this task? Then the second question is, who should we delegate it to? The third question is how much you want to be involved. So the first question is, should you delegate? And you need to mark 3 like tasks. So first you want to ask yourself, is this task not sensitive? If it's sensitive, it might be better that you do it yourself. Also, if it's urgent, we say that delegation can take some time, so it might be better that you do it yourself. And also when you delegate something, you want to make sure that the scope is clear. That doesn't mean that everything should be clear, like all the dependencies and everything, but at least you need to know like the frame of the task. Then you want, like, if you decided that this task is delegatable, you want to find who should you delegate it to. So there are 2 mandatory questions. First, do they have the ability? You want to delegate a task for someone who actually can do this task. It either means that they have like the knowledge in this area, or that they are senior enough, so even if they don't have the knowledge, they can still learn it. The second question is, do they have the capacity? Do they have time to actually work on this task? And then these are the mandatory questions. If you probably don't mark these, they're going to fail. So there are also like 2 highly recommended if you want to help them grow. 2 questions. One, are they willing to take this? So again, like it can be mandatory because some tasks nobody wants to work on, but you do try to make like the best effort so people can work on things that you really like. Also, will it help them grow? Either it's something they've never done before, or it's something they've done but now in a bigger scope. So these are 2 really highly recommended if you want to help your team grow. And then the third question is how much you want to be involved. Now let me see. I don't know if there's. Oh, I think there's no sound.
Desktop there, just some procedural things. I understand there's use help back and forth here, keeps things light and full. No serifs, it's actually sit up straight in your chair. We have another saying here, bad posture is generally considered to be inferior to good posture, BPI, GCT, BIPG. Just remember the word bapixit. Bapixit. things consistent with everyone else. You don't want to stick out as the new guy, eh?
Cool. So how do we call this? I guess you all know, like micromanagement. Did anyone here has been like micromanaged in the past? Has anybody here micromanaged? Yeah, you're not managers, so you're not micromanaged. Well, that's not true actually. Like you don't need to be a manager to micromanage. Like I've seen like so many like senior engineers, staff engineers who tell like their team exactly what to do, like how to do and everything. So it can be a little confusing. People think that only managers can micromanage, but actually, if you have at least some authority or if you delegate tasks, you can always micromanage. And honestly, even sometimes I find myself that I micromanage, which is not good. So you want to avoid telling someone how to do it in details and instead focus on the what we should do and why. Also avoiding micromanagement and like every 5 minutes checking if someone is progressing and so on and telling them exactly what to do. But on the other end, like the other end of that is just like throwing someone into the water. Just like giving them tasks and they'll handle it. They're like mature enough, they're senior enough, just like let them do their thing. And if they fail, it's like their responsibility. So you do want to set like clear expectations and like goals, how success look like, so on. Also, making some check-ins. It doesn't have to be every 5 minutes, but once a day. It's good to see like if they're blocked and help unblocking them, and also giving them feedbacks on the way. So we talked about helping your peers, but how do we take it? Like, let's say you've done that, and now you want to take it to the next level. So what can you do? Well, the first thing is try to mentor or help more senior engineers. Right? You'll find like there are more senior engineers they have like more complex issues. Things are starting to be like more complicated, and also you will face like new challenges. If you mentor at the beginning, maybe a new hire, so it's pretty like not that hard. Then maybe you mentored a junior. Most of the junior have problems with coding or with only technical stuff. Then when you mentor like more senior engineers, you'll see like new challenges, for example, communication, dependencies, all new challenges that you face. So your impact is going to get much higher, not only like helping people with their code, but actually unblocking like huge projects. And I have some rule of thumb. You can always mentor someone who is one level below you. So for example, if you are an intermediate developer, you can always mentor a junior. If you're a senior, you can then mentor an intermediate because you've been in their role and you know their challenges. So even today, I'm trying to keep like this. I'm trying always to keep like at least one people in my organization that I can mentor, which is one level below me, but also someone in my organization that is one level higher than me who can mentor me, who can help me grow. It's my rule of thumb. And also, you can do like cross-team impact. So far, we talked about helping only like one peer or just like a few peers in your team. But if you want to actually make an impact for like the entire organization and help not like a single peers, but helping like the entire organization, so you can join like many like of these like organizations have like onboarding team who decide like the onboarding experience. You can join this team. Also, there are like technical guilds in some companies, front-end guilds, database guilds, and so on. And also you can be a talker in an internal conference or just giving like tech talks in your organization, in your team. Now, if this doesn't exist, like you don't have an onboarding team, you don't have a guild, you don't have like tech talks in your team, that's actually even better because you can be the one who initiate these like efforts and be the one who's building these guilds, being the one who building an onboarding team, making sure that people have a good experience when they're joining the team. So you're actually making a huge impact, not only being like a member in this team to actually start them. Continue, for example, when I joined this team, like the Dropbox like team in Tel Aviv, the onboarding wasn't that well. So what I did, like the next thing I did instead of complaining is starting an onboarding team took like 2 colleagues of mine who helped me, and we were actually like building a program for people that join the team with a very clear expectation. And we did some surveys, and we saw that before we joined, the like people, the average score was 3.5 out of 5, and after we did like the onboarding team and did some improvement, the score was 4.4. So only again, like this doesn't exist. Like we had to initiate it and actually do the impact and help people joining our team. Cool, that's all with this talk. Let's do a short wrap up. So we started by talking about manager and individual contributors. We talked about ladders, the one path and the Y-shaped. Then we talked about manager focus points, and especially we talked about the growth. And we said that individual also had like focus points, but they also should care about their peers' growth. Then we talked about supporting as a senior individual contributor and why. So 3 reasons for them, for your peers, for the entire team, and for the execution of the team, and for you as an individual. You have some challenges, it takes time, and you might not have all the skill set that is needed. We talked about the advantages you should use. You have more informal connection with your peers, and also you have better context and better technical knowledge than your manager. Then we're starting to get like practical. So if you never mentored anyone, you can start by being a buddy. So answer any question that they have. You don't need a lot of knowledge. Really, everybody can be a buddy. Just need to be open to questions and want to help people. And we saw the numbers. There is a huge uplift in satisfaction and productivity. And again, if you don't have this like buddy program in your company, just take the numbers that you see, show it to your managers, and be the one who actually initiate this like effort. Then we talked about how you can help your team. So we started like with autonomy. Like we talked about the making sure that everybody is involved from the very early stages of the project. Then we talk about like breaking a big project into small pieces so every developer can take a project end to end. We talked about the Tesla case. You as a tech lead or a senior engineer, like your team will never be autonomous. So you should drive this like team as an autopilot and make sure that you are always aware of what's going on. Then we talked about delegation, review over do. It's a win for the long term. And the 3 questions you need to ask yourself. Is it delegatable? Who should I delegate it to? And how much I want to be involved. Then if you want to make like more impact, the 10x multiplier, mentor more senior engineers in your company, always 1 level below you, and you'll see like more complex issues and you can like really do more impact and help people with tougher problems. Then we talked about multi-team knowledge efforts, join them or just again, initiate. It's always good to initiate and start something. This is what actually makes the impact. But always remember, people are unique. People are snowflakes. Everybody has their own way. And again, it's really good to ask people like where they want to be, where they want to grow, how you can help them. Don't try to enforce them like your style. Also, I guess like you are probably working in different companies and you are different than me. So I guess like you're not taking everything from the slides and try to like do it tomorrow. But I do hope you took at least like 1 or 2 things, and you take it and actually do it. And if you done it, if you did and something worked for you or something didn't work for you, I'd really be happy to learn about that. So that's me, Alon Kiriati. You can always find me on LinkedIn, ask me questions, or tell me just like your feedback. Thank you very much. And I'll stick here if anybody wants questions. I don't know if we have the mic. So I'll just stick here or be at the conference. Again, if you're shy, you can always ask me on LinkedIn.